You've already had a lot of words thrown at you tonight, so I'll try and cut this down. I've got 3 stories that I want to share with you, but it might seem strange each year that in this season of Lent, this season of everything being so sincere, so serious and all of that, to have a gospel like this of Jesus, showing his glory. Obviously, it was, I guess, what we would call a preview, sneak peek, coming attraction, whatever you might want to call it. But it was interesting to note the way that the disciples responded. First of all, wow, this is great, which is fine. But they said, Lord, this is amazing. Let's pitch some tents up here so that this can continue on. We want to stay in this situation, this glorious, wonderful thing forever. And as Jesus showed them, no, this was just a look into the future. They had to go back to their lives. That's a challenge for Lent, for us. How much did the apostles really want to see? And how much was it we just want the good feeling that our faith brings us? We just want what's comfortable. There once was a woman who was religious and devout and filled with love for God. Each morning she would go to church, and on her way children would call out to her, beggars would accost her. But so immersed was she in her devotions that she did not even see them. Now one day she walked down the street in her customary manner and arrived at the church just in time for Mass. She pushed the door, but it would not open. She pushed it again harder and found the door was locked. Distressed at the thought that she would miss Mass for the first time in years and not knowing what to do, she looked up. And there, right before her face, she found a note pinned to the door. It said, "I'm out there." One of the disciplines of Lent is that we do works of charity. We show our concern for the friends of Jesus, those who have been forgotten, those who are in need. Also, the gospel, God's voice said, "This is my beloved Son," and therefore you need to listen to him, to hear his word. A challenge for us during Lent in prayer is to try and hear with new ears. We get used to just, I'll hear what I want to hear. I'll do what I want to do. And Lent challenges us to move beyond that, to be disposed to God's voice. A young man from a rural area traveled to New York City to visit a friend he had known since college. As they walked down Madison Avenue, the rural visitor stopped suddenly and said, "Listen, I hear a cricket." "Are you kidding me?" said the New Yorker. "With all the traffic, construction noises, and people, that's impossible." His guest disagreed. Then he listened attentively and walked toward a large cement planter. There, in the soil and under a leaf, he found a cricket. His friend was astonished. By way of explanation, the rural visitor said, "My ears are no better than yours. It simply depends on what you're listening for." To prove his point, he pulled out a handful of change from his pocket and dropped it on the sidewalk. Every head within a block turned in their direction. As he bent down to retrieve the coins, he asked, "Now, do you understand?" This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. Hear what he is saying, for he is speaking a word of love, my love. And then finally, we have to remember that the Jesus that appeared in his glory, that appeared, transfigured, was a few seconds later the exact same Jesus who they walked with, who was part of their daily lives. But for some reason, in some way, they had the opportunity to see him differently. In our lives, as we go through the day-to-day, the routine, the responsibilities, the pressures, the frustrations, we're called to look beyond what is just there. We're called to realize that there's always more than simply what meets the eye. There was an old woman who crossed the Brazilian frontier every day on a motor scooter with a sack of sand slung on her back. The customs officer eventually became suspicious and inquired, "What have you got in that sack?" "Only sand, sir," came the reply. The officer emptied the sack, and sure enough, it contained nothing but sand. He sent her on her way. And so it went for a month. One day the officer said to the old woman, "I won't arrest you or say anything to the police, but just tell me, are you smuggling or not?" "Yes," she answered truthfully. "I thought so," he pressed her. "Well, what are you smuggling?" With a smile, she replied, "Motor scooters." Lent is there so that we might be more able, more willing to see God present, to truly hear the voice of Jesus, to know the challenge of living his love, building his kingdom. That's how, when the Father says to us, "This is my beloved Son," that's how we listen to him.